Well, chapter 10, Wisdom to Make the World Go On. I've debated whether, I got to tell you a few stories. I'm an old man now. I'm looking back on my very fulfilling career, but I got to share a couple things like with you. Wisdom to Make the World Go On. You'll see that the brief epigraph for this chapter is her doctoral dissertation advisor, Catherine Keller. A brief quotation: "To love is to bear with the chaos." Catherine Keller, very cool cover. "Face of the Deep, a Theology of Becoming." I may have mentioned that I think I'd have to say she's my favorite living theologian. She's really high on my all-time list of theologians, but there's a lot of contenders in there in the history of Christian thought. But boy, she is amazing. A theological, philosophical, literary genius, wit, writer par excellence, creator of puns, plays on words, and all manner of stuff that I really love. She does it a lot. I may have mentioned to you that my first year at Point Loma, I decided, because I was teaching the senior seminar spring of 2000 after the turn of the millennium on eschatology, and not this book, but her previous book before this. It's like Apocalypse Now and Then, a feminist guide to the end of the world. I don't know why I don't see it over there on my shelf. It may still be in my office. But and it's great. It's just great. The woman is about 18, moves ahead of everybody else, it seems like. So I'd used that book, and I'd read her doctoral dissertation, which was also published. In between the time of finishing my dissertation at Emory University and then waiting for my defense date. So it was 6 to 8 weeks. And while I was a carpenter's helper, and I'm one of the most inept just imagine me, hand me the nail, which end, anyhow. I read her. It's called From a Broken Web. I thought I think I still have a lot of her stuff at school, which is fine. And boy, what I want to say about that was, here I'm reading her dissertation. I knew it was her dissertation, and I just finished my dissertation. I thought, oh, was I supposed to write something like this good? Fortunately, the answer to that was no. So I really admired her work. I knew who she was. I'd seen her at, American Academy of Religion meetings, like the one in San Diego this weekend. And this happened to be in the year 2000, and probably the fall of 2000. So I was just starting my second year at Point Loma, and had that previous spring read Apocalypse Now and Then with my seminar, leaving most of them probably wanting to kill me. But so it's late one night. We actually had it, I think, Dollywood, it was like Dolly Partonville, which seemed weird for the American Academy of Religion, but it's okay. So it's late one evening, like probably Sunday night. The thing goes from basically Friday evening to Tuesday midday. And it's late night. I'm heading back to the room that I shared with my fellow theologian Sam Powell, who's now retired. And there's like this breezeway, right, covered, but it's late. I open the door to go, I need to go through this breezeway to the next building. And who's at the other end of that breezeway? But here comes Catherine Keller. So I've got this theological crush on her already, right? And I do emphasize theological. And, I'm sure she had her name tag on. I know I had mine, because as I neared her, I called her by name, because I just wanted to say thank you for this work that you're doing, all this really wonderful work. And one of the highlights of my life, before I could get that out, she looked at my name tag and she goes, Michael Lodahl, the Shekinah Man. The Shekinah Man. My doctoral dissertation. She had read it. Actually, it's quoted in Apocalypse Now and then just like one sentence, but made me feel real good. But that wasn't why I liked the book. She said, yeah, really loved your book on the Holy Spirit, and then she alluded to her Jewish studies colleague at the seminary at Drew University. She said, I can't remember his name, but anyway, well-known guy. Sheesh. Anyway, she said, yeah, and my colleague so-and-so, that's just awful. My mind is really going. Tells me you were just right on all your Judaism in that book. And that was a nice thing to say, and I think I probably told her, well, I had a lot of help from really actual Jewish scholars who know Hebrew and everything. But like, it was so amazing, and then she said, hey, now this is my first time ever talking with her. She said, hey, actually second time, but we won't. I'm working on a book right now, and I don't know. I'm sure you're very busy, but what would be the chance of? I'd love to share some manuscript chapters with you and just get your reading. And I'm probably about to wet my pants and my jaws falling to the floor, and I just said absolutely, absolutely. By the way, so precious to me. I have kept this stuff over the years. And really, the thing is, for every chapter I read, I basically would just go like, wow, this is so amazing. Like, it was just like, and then I go, but I found typos, that was my, but like, I just, I wrote some really nice things, and she said, hi, Michael, what wonderful knowing companionship you have been providing me in this process. These comments will keep me chirping through the next round of writing. But before you read any more, I should make sure you have the most up-to-date drafts and so on. So I have this whole, and here's the thing. Subsequently, I learned, and this does amaze me, that Catherine Keller, I can't speak to her present state of mind, but back then had boatloads of self-doubt. And that is just so, what? I've never encountered anybody as gifted as this person, but a lot of, so apparently all these nice compliments were encouraging to her as she wrote this lovely book. And I've learned since, her doctoral advisor is a guy that's now celebrating his 100th birthday, still living on the planet with us, John B. Cobb Jr. And I've been blessed to get to know John a little bit. Basically, since I moved to San Diego and I was able to take students to stuff at Claremont and things like that. And he actually has come to dinner with some of your earlier religion student colleagues over the years. But we were talking about Catherine Keller one time, and he was just going on and on about, what an amazing mind and intellect, teacher and mentor. I've learned all these things from other people that have studied under her. And then he said, but if she lacks anything, it's confidence. And so that kind of, I said, man, how? He says, I don't know. Family dynamics of some kind, I suppose, so it's been a real gift to be able to, I'm like sort of in awe of her. Like, I want to just be a regular, hey, how you doing, Catherine? But it's usually like, So I still have a little time, right, to why I just had to tell you that story. So yeah, we did the Kahlo thing. Let me just, in fact, we'll just make sure I wrap this up. I just want to say that I just think Sharon Betcher learned really well from, I'm sure, many people, but Catherine Keller's among them. Near the bottom of 197, wow, a lot of this even sounds a bit like Keller. Fourth line down, spiritual, or fourth line from the bottom, spiritual wisdom of composing ourselves with equanimity, even mindedness, kind of, before the shifting tectonics of a lifetime. Shifting tectonics of a lifetime. Since all bodies must sometime deal with the fall from, and a little play on word, very Kellerian, if I can say that, fall from grace / fullness. So fall from grace in the old theological term meaning, but she's adding this extra twist, right? The fall from gracefulness of the beautiful and well kempt body. I hope that Allie noticed that she, I don't think she's real happy with the Apostle Paul, and on Romans 8, under holding corporeal contours. Look at that. That's a alliteration. Holding corporeal contours in cultural consciousness. While Christianity holds the incarnation of spirit in flesh, see, she's using that as a very broad category. I mean, she ultimately she has Jesus in mind, but she's trying to talk about incarnation in broader ways, of course, here. As its defining paradigm, Christianity has also written histories qualifying just how much and precisely what kind of carnus, flesh, and actually, in the Greek, it's not carnus, that's a Latin, it's sarx, and that probably would have been the better term to use. What kind of sarx spirit will tolerate in terms of, oh my goodness, I missed that typo. Nobody sent me this manuscript ahead of time, obviously. In terms of, even there's not supposed to be a comma after of. I think I remember seeing this. I'm like, where was the editor? Tolerate in terms of gender, race, sexuality, undergirded with Platonism. I'm going to push back on her. I think if Paul's undergirded by anything here, and I do think he is, it's the Jewish tradition. It's just not right to put this on Platonism. Paul mapped out, unless you may be a platonically influenced Judaism, Paul mapped out Christianity's trajectory of transcendent hope by generating a psychic aversion to transience and the terrestrial, the bondage to decay. And then she mentions Athanasius again. I mean, one could easily say Paul needs to plead guilty on this, but I think it's less psychic aversion to transience in the terrestrial. If it was such a, she doesn't go on to talk about that Paul describes creation in these pains of childbirth, but with the idea that there's a new birth of creation imminent. And this was very much a rabbinic idea. They talked about the birth pangs of the Messiah. So in terms of a theodicy, probably the most typical rabbinic one was everything we're seeing around right now, around us, oppression by the Romans, wars, and all that stuff, are birth pangs of the Messiah. The creation's going through this labor process, and the Messiah will either be given birth or come forth or somehow in that sort of thing. So, I wonder if Betcher's on very solid ground to try to make Romans 8 somehow a text in which Paul betrays his, we'll say, hatred or rejection of material creation, because at least typically Romans 8 has been read quite in the opposite direction. I guess I do have one more to do, because I had to tell you the story of Catherine Keller. I didn't have to, and it's, yeah, I got to share this stuff before I'm gone.